Let's take a look at the radio that will be installed in the buses. Here we have the FW990 in its bus configuration. On the front we have the power key and volume control. Below we have the emergency key. This is used to alert a dispatcher in case of emergency. We have the mic connection point, the menu key, up and down arrow keys, a back key and a multifunction key. And up here we have the status indicator. We'll cover what that does later. If we flip the radio around, on the back of the radio you'll see the power connection port with 3 lines: ignition, continuous and ground. And on this side we have our antenna connectors, LTE being our cellular connector, GPS for the GPS data. And on the antenna wires you will see tags, so 4G should go to LTE, GPS should go to, you guessed it, the GPS. And if you follow those wires you'll come to the antenna itself. Flipping it back around and taking a look at the microphone. On the microphone itself there's one button. It's orange. It's the one you push to talk. Push and hold to talk. Turning the radio on is done by 2 methods. If your bus is wired up so that it comes on with the ignition, the second you turn on the ignition your radio will power on. The second you turn off the ignition your radio will power off. Now some of the buses are not set up like that. So in that case use the power key. Simply push and hold. And the radio is going to boot up. Now remember, this is a network radio that has a computer inside, so it's not as quick to turn on as a standard radio. It'll go through a process. You'll see it search for the network, and then shortly it'll change to logging in as it connects to the network. Just be patient. It takes a few seconds, and there we go. It's logged in. So let's take a look at the radio itself. Starting from top, we have our signal strength, the type of network we're connected to, 4G or 3G, our GPS tracking data indicator. As you can see here, it currently has a dark circle in the middle. That means we do not currently have a valid fix, and that is because we're inside our head office building here. If we were outside and we had a valid signal, this would be solid white. The black in the middle would be gone. Over here we see a little telephone. This indicates that we are connected to the network and we can talk on the radio system. And in case you hadn't figured it out, this is a clock. It tells us the time of day. Moving on down, we have the group indicator. This tells us the group we are currently in. We have the status indicator telling us what is currently happening with the radio. And we have the caller ID indicator. At power up it'll tell you your bus number. When someone else talks it would indicate who else was talking. And then across the bottom we have the key indicators. So menu key, group key, user key, back key. And this is our multifunction, which is to do different functions with the radio. We'll explain these shortly. Okay, so let's take a look at actually using the radio. Here I have a handheld radio just for demonstration purposes. This radio is called Handheld 7. And as you can see, our radio here is actually called Demo Base, even though we're demonstrating the bus. When we key up on this radio by pushing the microphone button, you'll see we now indicate that we are talking, and it indicates that we are Demo Base. Also, the status indicator goes red to indicate we are transmitting. If we take a look over here on the handheld, you'll see it is receiving, or as it says, listening, from Demo Base. Once we release the talk button, you'll see everything goes back to last call, Demo Base, local name, Demo Base. If we do the opposite, when the handheld talks, it now shows us talking, Handheld 7, and on our bus radio it shows us listening, Handheld 7. When it's finished, it shows us the last call was from Handheld 7. Okay, taking a look at the menu. We access that by pressing the menu key here. And then you'll see a series of icons, each of them with a description popping up right here. So we scroll up and down to go through them. Now the bus configuration severely limits what can be accessed here. For example, if we go into groups, you'll see only groups assigned to you. There are many groups through the company of Abbotsford Chilliwack, Abbotsford Handy Dart, Chilliwack Handy Dart. If your bus runs multiple routes, for example the express routes going through Abbotsford and Chilliwack, you would see multiple groups here. You could scroll down and select. But this bus only runs in Abbotsford, and therefore we only see Abbotsford. Many of these functions, if you actually click on them in this configuration, for example friends list, will say no friends because it's disabled. Same with users, all disabled. The first one that's important is audio settings. If we view audio settings, one of the key things if you are having trouble with your radio is to make sure your sound quality is set to HQ. Sound quality should always be set in high quality mode. If it goes to standard quality mode, you will not hear correctly what people are saying, and they will not hear you correctly. So, HQ mode. We can also adjust the mic level and the Roger beep. Roger beep being, in this case, whether the radio beeps when it's receiving or not. The other settings that might be useful, advanced settings, that allows us to change the network mode, the power on mode as I described earlier. We can switch from key mode to ignition wire mode and back and forth. And finally settings. Settings allows us to change things like the backlight, the brightness of the screen, whether the screen locks, if the keys make sounds when you press them, and change the language. That's all that's useful in the menu on this bus radio. Press back to get out. So a couple of troubleshooting things to go over with this radio. 1. Check that your mic wire is intact at both ends of the cable where it connects to the radio. If you're having audio problems, that's the first place to look. Secondly, if you're having audio problems, the next place to look is in the audio settings and make sure your radio is on high quality. If your radio is not connecting to the network for whatever reason, first of all, take a look at the back and check that your antennas are connected correctly and to the right port, 4G to LTE, GPS to GPS. And finally, check that your network settings, network mode, is set to 4G only. The other options are for use in remote areas. The Abbotsford, Chilliwack, Hope, Mission area is entirely covered by 4G, so we run the radios in 4G only mode. If we were out in the Kootenays or somewhere in the middle of nowhere, we would run in auto mode because there's a prevalence of 3G networks there that don't exist down here.